Hi, welcome to another edition of Psoto Desperado Plays Ark Survival Ascended. Oh, I left this hole open. Shouldn't have done that. Anyway, I have to get the next thing of eggs, but I made a bunch of parts, so I'm going to not move my base. I'm going to make another base on a separate map so I can have more breeders. And I was supposed to have done this a long time ago, but I didn't. So I'm kind of behind in schedule. But I got all the parts in this bird. And these are just beginner parts. One bed, a bunch of gates, right? A vault, a bunch of large stone walls. I got a gateway, regular walls, foundations, basic stuff. Nothing fantastic. Okay. So I still have to do the next generation of eggs. Apparently I stopped production because I thought that female, remember that female that was here, I put her in storage. I just marked her as a multi-mutation female and decided just to keep her for looking at, nothing special. Then I reinitiated, so all the eggs are there in the oviraptors, but they'll wait till I come back. Not sure I need to take anything else with me, but yeah. I was just gonna put it in ground and then come back. That's what I was thinking of doing. Yeah, we'll just do that. That's fine. I don't think I'll need a backup mount. Well, you know what? I am gonna take a backup mount. Who do I have here? Midway. I'll take Midway as a backup mount. Alright, so my goal is to get to the obby, put all the stuff in the Ark data, and then put all my stuff in the Ark data, and then transfer to one of the other maps. You know what I mean? And that should be it. I don't think I'm going to freeze or anything, but I do have some stuff on here. I have some cold winter gear in case I decide to do the center. There are certain spots on the center that are incredibly cold, but they don't look cold. So you fly through there, you move through there, and you can freeze real quick without even realizing it, because it's just that's the way it is, But I have cold weather gear on me. I don't think I'll be able to access this. Yeah, I won't be able to access it. Oh, let me go ahead, and I forgot to start one of the videos. This time I got them all. I got all the video links and everything in a description, and it's so that even if I have a problem, a technical issue, I should be okay. Okay, this video is by Anton Daniels. Are conservatives buying Tesla, supporting Elon Musk? Hypocritical woman wants bidder over Trump. I don't know about that.
So I have a question for conservatives, like not right wing per se, just on the right. Are y'all going to be convinced now to buy electric cars, Teslas, because the left doesn't want to buy them anymore because now they hate Elon, and he needs somebody to buy them. So hey, Elon's helping the government, so we should buy Teslas. Like, is that working? Who's now on the right buying a Tesla?
I am familiar with a bunch of liberals that still buy whatever they want to buy. See, here's the thing, especially about black people, is that black people are going to do whatever it is that they want to do when they want to do it. Now, you do have some people that's trying to hold out and trying to pretend like they don't necessarily like the vehicle. And they are trying to pretend like, oh man, we want to be on everybody else's side and all of that. But in a general sense, most black people are going to do whatever they want to do, which I kind of applaud them. Lately, they've had a herd mentality. The only thing that it seems like they get stuck on is being on a Democratic plantation and being on code as far as black women. But other than that, a lot of black people kind of do what they want to do. Now, let's slice this from a couple different angles. Number one, isn't it funny how much hypocrisy is being displayed by leftists and left-wing people that were tree huggers? Because when Tesla first emerged and how they continued to push their product and all of this stuff, and even how they marketed themselves, not in commercials, but the conversations that was being had organically it was a better and alternative solution to internal combustion vehicles and the amount of emissions and methane gas that was being emitted into the air, whether you are farming animals for human consumption or you have, CO2 levels or whatever like that that's coming outside of the car, right? Tailpipe emissions. And they embraced it. Oh my God, I can't believe it. I mean, honest to God, just 10 years ago, and that's not even that long ago. I know guys that did a dime, went to prison, and got out in less time than that. Just a little bit ago, people were tree huggers. They were embracing Toyota and the Prius. And when Tesla came out, we need to make sure, oh my God, I can't believe that you're driving that internal combustion engine. Cash for clunkers. And they were pushing it during the Green New Deal and the Biden deal and all of this stuff. And the minute that Trump then picks Elon Musk as the Department of Government Efficiency head to come in and find out where all of the fraud, waste, and abuse is, all of a sudden, everybody just so happened to fall off of the board, and nobody wants to actually have a conversation about the same things that they were having a conversation about 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 years ago. The minute that Elon Musk embraced Trump as president of the United States of America, you've seen liberal white women, right? And super liberals all across the board that's looking to have a community of people that's mad and all of this stuff. We became more divisive than ever, right? Now, I believe that people have the right to buy whatever it is that they want to buy. And this is one of the reasons why I voted for Trump. Me personally, I am a black conservative. I've had 2 Teslas in my life. I had a Model Y, right? And then now I have a Cybertruck. I bought the Cybertruck after Trump won office.
Looks like I'll be going to the
love
center.
it. I love it. It is one of the best vehicles that I have. The technology in it is insane. It's awesome. It continues to be upgraded. And more importantly, it's funny because I was driving it yesterday. And I was driving my 96 Impala, right? And I was thinking about the technology that was in the Porsche, the 911, because I got a 911. And I was thinking about the technology in it. And even though it's technologically advanced as far as its driving, when I jump in my in real time, things that surround me to where you never even really have to look out the mirrors to park your vehicle. I think that I'm going to always own a Tesla and or an electric vehicle alongside the loves of my life, which is internal combustion vehicles. The Porsche 911 is one of the best driving cars that I have. I also make sure that I support every automaker. I love Dodge vehicles. I have a Challenger Hellcat, right? That has less than 1,000, actually got less than 400 miles on it. And it hasn't even reached the point of the breaking point. I'm looking to buy a Corvette, probably a ZR1. That or a Cadillac Escalade, the new Escalade, is the only vehicles that I'll probably look at in the General Motors category that appeal to me.
Ooh, wow.
Outside of like a Sierra pickup, but I got
that's
two
pretty high
because
level.
I also have a TRX along with the Hellcat, so I love those old school Dodge products. I have an electric Charger.
Damn, I have to kill a high level one.
Vehicle. That's coming, so they told me to pick a vehicle and all of that stuff. I'm probably going to buy a ZR1 in addition to the 96 Impala because I always want to have a Chevy, a Ford. I got the Bronco, right? We also got the Ford Bronco in the fleet and all of that stuff. Got the Mercedes. Got a lot of vehicles, but I love internal combustion vehicle engines, and those are the loves of my life. But as far as daily drivers, for you being able to plug up at your crib and be able to go and do whatever it is that you want to do, I buy things based off of what is best for my lifestyle, and that is the thing that Trump represents. Freedom of choice. And more importantly, it's funny because Elon Musk is actually making more sacrifice than any other human being on the face of this planet. Last week, as of the recording of a video last week that I was doing on the Millionaire Morning Show, it said that over $180 billion had been shaved off of his net worth because of the image that is being impacted, or his image and him being impacted, and him making sure that he go through the federal government with a fine-tooth comb to find all of the fraud, waste, and abuse. It's funny. That shouldn't even be a Democratic thing. That shouldn't be a Republican thing. That should be a bipartisan thing across the board. Why would we want our tax dollars to be going to overseas? Why would we want our tax dollars to be being paid off to these politicians? The reason why Democrats are so gung-ho on trying to prevent you from being able to find out what's behind the closed door and see the Wizard of Oz is because they don't want you to mess up their money train. And I pray that Elon Musk can continue to reveal and showcase all of the trash, the waste, and abuse, and we need to stop having a federal government. I mean, basically, these people are basically saying they don't want any future for the United States of America. They don't care about your kids. They don't care about your grandkids. They don't care about the future, the people that's coming after us. But thank God that we have masculinity back in the office and with a backbone. And I actually, celebrate Elon Musk because he's made a whole lot of Americans millionaires that is invested in the company. I remember when he started opening up factory floors and hiring people, he actually gave them equity into the company, and that made them millionaires. He hires American workers and American jobs and all of that. And he's the first really, really successful automaker that started a company inside of the United States of America since Ford, Chrysler, and GM. Now we got Rivian and things like that. But Elon Musk very much could have never said nothing in the first place and just sold as many cars as possible. As many cars as possible. But instead, he's not even from here, but he is a U.S. citizen, and he's doing the things that's in the best interest of the United States of America, and people don't feel no way about it. I think that Democrats are incredibly hypocritical. I don't care whether or not they buy a vehicle or not because that is their choice. I think that we should have freedom of choice. But to think that people are not buying Tesla vehicles just because y'all protesting, first of all, I think it's hypocritical. And then secondly, I absolutely believe that Tesla will be fine over a period of time. And more importantly, I look at a lot of the things that's happening in the stock market as a buying opportunity. So me, as a conservative, to answer the question, absolutely, positively, I still have Tesla vehicles. I will always own Ford, Chrysler, and GM and Tesla vehicles. I am looking to add a Rivian into the collection, but I am a car guy. I'm a car enthusiast, and I understand that people have choice, but I just find it incredibly hypocritical that people that were tree huggers and that were embracing Tesla just a little bit ago is feeling some type of way because he's standing up for the American people. Let me know what y'all think inside of the comments. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. Also, Teach Hanley, 40% off your first order plus 20% off for life. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm going to holler at you later. Peace.
Yeah, I mean, electric vehicle probably isn't for everybody, but, given the price tag and all, but, it's the wave of the future, It's the future is going to look that way, hopefully. Or maybe something better. Who knows? Oh. Somebody left their dragon out. See, this is what I was afraid of, people building shit real close to this thing. Okay. Uh-oh. Oh, here it is. What I like about this, all the weight in the world can't stop you from grabbing what's in there. And you just slide it over. There you go. Boom, just like that. Alright, so now I have the beginnings of a base. I have one bed. That's all I need is one bed. I could try to build on the other side. There is a small island over here. Like here's a teleporter. It's there, but it's not available. It says it's unlocked, but that doesn't mean it's open to the public. Now back here, there was a bunch of small islands. Yeah, here it is. Somebody built back here already. Shit. Yeah. It's pretty flat space, that's why I like it. Yeah, I don't want to have to teleport to the thing here. Shit. Fuck that. So I try to help it out, but no. Looks like a lot of these small islands are taken. This is one of the places I like to build, is on these islands. It's just so out of the way, you know. Downside is you don't have access to the resources you want right there. So. What does that say? Let me get the next video in. Sorry, I forgot about that. Scotty Kilmer, Americans are about to find out there's no more cars or food left.
Rev up your engines! Well, the economy seems to be going into a rather precarious situation, and now some of these economists, including a guy by the name of Ray Dalio, is warning that the mounting U.S. debt could lead to shocking developments. What it comes down to is, all they do is deficit spending. They spend money they don't have, and they borrow it. Well, people loan money. to the government. And strangely enough, a lot of the U.S. debt has been bought by communist China. Now, you figure this one out. Karl Marx would be standing on his head. Here's a communist country buying up debt from the biggest capitalist country. It makes no sense, right? But what it comes down to is we're in deep doo-doo because the government is always operating on borrowed money. If you watch the news, you'll see every so often, every so many months, they say the government's going bankrupt. Oh, we're going to shut down. The government's going bankrupt, blah, blah, blah. And then what happens? Oh, we'll raise the debt ceiling and borrow some more money. Well, with all this debt, these economists are saying, hey, people might not loan us any money anymore because we're in so much debt, right? The problem comes down to that for decades, the interest rate was almost nothing. So they're borrowing money and the payments was little tiny bits, right? So the corporations, everybody's borrowing money for nothing and making their money on your money and paying you nothing back, right? And they can talk all they want about, oh, we're going to put a tariff on this or that. That is not going to create the money. One, it isn't all that much money to begin with. And two, you might end up losing money because the other people put tariffs and your companies won't be selling stuff. They'll be making less money, right? So then they're paying less tax. The whole thing is just based on deficit spending. And it's been going that way for a long time. Like the stock market goes up, blows up, goes down, comes back up. Problem with the debt is it just keeps going up. Because nobody's stopping. You can't keep borrowing money. It's only common sense. But today the problem is this is a worldwide economy. Like I said, the Chinese own a bunch of our debt. What's a communist country doing buying a capitalist country's debt? Nobody really knows. Well, I guess mainly it's because they want to sell us all the crap that they make, right? Look at everything you got. Made in China, right? Now the national debt is over $36.2 trillion. The U.S. deficit is now 7.2% of our gross domestic product. And his economists say it should be more like 3%. So it's a lot more than double what it's supposed to be. And you're not going to fix this by putting little tariffs on something that doesn't work. And, of course,
that's
what a
why
lot of people don't comprehend is things like the stock market.
You can't build
it's
next
a
to
fantasy.
these things.
It's what people believe.
Yes.
And if people start getting shaken, they know that the stock market's just a belief, so we better get out before it collapses. Well, it's starting to go down now. Just like Bitcoin, it was 100,000. Now it's down to 80,000. Who knows what's going to happen, right? These are just beliefs. They're not actually doing something. That's the problem with a lot of our society. A lot of people don't actually do anything. They just sit, collect government money, or they got a job where they don't really do anything, and they collect money, and that's a big problem, right? And the economists are warning, you can't just keep borrowing money when you can't pay it back, because eventually people say, those guys don't pay back, we're not going to borrow your debt anymore. And if they don't buy the debt, then what's the government going to operate on? Then it will have to get real austerity. Not, oh, we'll cut this or we'll cut that. It's going to be a massive change. Well, it's not like electric cars don't have a gigantic plethora of problems. But it's coming out of winter now. A lot of people have found out, whoa, they really lose energy in the winter. A friend of mine in Montreal, okay, he's lost 50% of his range in the cold weather. They can only charge so much, then they discharge faster because it's colder. And what a lot of people don't know is all the modern ones that you buy have liquid electrolyte batteries, and it will freeze and crack and destroy itself if it gets cold. So they have to heat themselves up. Well, the energy that heats them up comes from the battery itself, so it depletes itself just sitting there in the cold weather. Right? And if you lose 50% of an already low range, you're not going to make too many people happy. They're not going to be happy about it. To make matters worse, you're cold when the car's cold, so you want to heat yourself up. Guess what? It takes energy from the battery to heat you up, too. And in the summer, conversely, you got to cool yourself down. It takes energy from the battery to cool yourself down because everything is run by the big, giant electric battery. And it's supplying power to everything. Even when it's sitting, turned off, it's using some power up, especially if it's cold outside and it's got to heat itself up. So when I tell people these things aren't ready for prime time, I'm not joking. I fix cars for a living. I'm just telling you the truth about these things. Maybe sometime in the future they'll figure it out. But they haven't figured it out yet. And if you go and buy one of these stupid things, don't blame me when you're not happy with your decision. Down the line, when it falls apart, costs a fortune, doesn't go as far as you think. You really can't take it on trips because you're going to have to take extra days off work because it's going to take you extra days to do a long trip. Sitting there charging, looking around for places charging it, probably getting stranded and having to be towed somewhere every once in a while. Hey, it's a big inconvenience. Well, Toyota's new EVs are getting a big battery upgrade, people are saying. Oh, yeah, well, here's what I say. One, Toyota doesn't sell that many electric cars. And two, the upgrade isn't much. Because the BZ4X, their electric car, and the Lexus RZ, and their new C+, HR+ electric vehicles, right? They don't go that far to begin with. The batteries aren't that big. They're making them bigger, but look at the difference. I'm laughing. Presently, the battery that they have in the small one is 57.7 kilowatt hours, right? The new one is going to have a 57.7 kilowatt hour battery. Same size, right? I mean, they claim it's more efficient or something, but it's still the same size, so it really isn't bigger. And then their big battery for the fancy Lexuses, okay, they presently have 73.1 kilowatt hours. The new one is going to have 77 kilowatt hours. Isn't that big of a percentage, right? They keep trying to push this crap on us. Toyota sold hardly any of those stupid electric cars in the United States. Toyota sold 2.33 million cars in the United States last year. Okay, they sold 18,000 of them in 2024, and they sold like 9,000 of them in 2023. They're hardly selling any of these things. Now, I'll give Toyota kudos because, hey, they realized electric cars weren't it, and they're making them, but they're not going full bore on them by any stretch of the imagination. Of course, Toyota said 2 or 3 years from now, they're going to have fully functional solid-state batteries in their cars. If they do and they work, it would be a game changer, right? But as it stands now, they aren't. The increase in range of these things isn't much. 30 miles, 40 miles more. Yeah, really far. They're not ready for America. So they sell a few thousand of them out of the 2.3 million cars they sold in the United States. You can say Toyota's just playing the game now. We'll build some, right? We'll build some. But you'll find out that, hey, just like they're now selling electric stuff in China, but it's Toyota in alliance with a big Chinese manufacturer. They're basically Chinese electric cars and just put the name Toyota. Maybe one day, if they do get these solid-state batteries, great. But they don't today, so my advice is stay away from them. Well, the dominoes seem to be falling for electric cars and electric car batteries. The Swedish EV car battery manufacturer Northvolt just filed for bankruptcy. They've given up the ghost. Northvolt said, and I quote, "We're filed for insolvency after an exhaustive effort to explore all available means to secure a viable financial and operational future for the company." Those are their words, right? In other words, nobody wants to put any more money into your stupid electric batteries, and they, of course, blame it on Chinese. The Chinese are making cheap batteries. Hey, if they make it better, isn't that just too bad? All these companies have to do with electric cars, electric car batteries. They're starting to fall like dominoes because people aren't buying them. The people who make the batteries, they go out. The people who make the parts of the batteries, they go out. It's a giant domino effect, right? And this is in Sweden. And they're supposed to be green there. Now they have American operations. They've gone bankrupt over here, too. These people just were getting government money, and now the government money is starting to dry up, and so the companies are going bankrupt. I have seen this over and over again. I've been running a business for 57 years, right? I had a customer who, in the Obama administration, was a big wheel at a recycling company out of Conroe, Texas. They made shingles that were supposedly the best in the world, but they cost more than all the other ones do. But they were recycling car tires and car seats and stuff, and the companies that had car tires loved it because you got old car tires, you got to get rid of them, you can't burn them, and they were shredding them, so they got all their car tires for nothing. The company, yeah, we can give you more here. Take our car tires before we get a fine for a giant pile of tires. This company only existed because they had a 200-something% government backing. The government was giving them 200%. But when the Obama administration went bye-bye and this subsidy from the government went, this recycling company went out of business, just like Northvolt. These things aren't able to economically exist, so there's no point in trying to push this on people. And now they're starting to fall, and people are realizing, gee, maybe it was kind of a stupid idea to push it out so fast. It's not working. All right, people are always asking me, everything's going to be electrified cars and everything. What about if I get a home generator, right? Well, this one guy got one of these home wind generators to see if it actually worked, and I can't help but laugh. So he buys this thing that's called a Shine turbine kit, stuck in his backyard. Now, it features a 12,000 milliampere hour battery. Okay? Now, 12,000 sounds like a lot, right? Yeah, but it's milliamps. You know what a milliamp? Milliamp is a 1/1000th of an amp. So 12,000 milliamps is, yes, only 12 amps. And to top it all off, it only generates 40 watts of power. Now, to give you an example, let's say you got a toaster. The average toaster uses between 800 and 1500 watts to make your toast, right? So even at the low end, if you got the best toaster out there and it's using 800 watts, this thing puts out 40 watts if the wind's blowing full speed, right? And you would need 20 of them to run one toaster. So don't think you're going to pull one of these things up and use it for anything except for a science experiment for your kid going to school. It's fine for that, but don't think you're going to be generating power to charge your electric car with. At that rate, it would take a year to charge an electric car. Don't think, these things really do that much. If you get a really big one, yeah, they can do stuff, but those things cost tens and tens of thousands of dollars, and they still don't create all that much electricity. They're good for guys out in the middle of nowhere in a cabin in the woods, or if a guy's got a whole bunch of money, has a ranch somewhere and there's no power, he might put one of those things up. But for the rest of us, they're just toys. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.
He really ripped up the whole situation there. Oof. I think I'm going to go put it on that little island I found over there. Just so I can have a base there. And, because if I put it anywhere here, they may complain. Because it's going to be tall. But if I put it over there, I can always fly back to the obby. I just want to be close enough to the obby to not take forever to go back and forth. Okay, so I'll put a small base on this end. Doesn't look like anything's manifesting here. Oh, let's play the next video. Yeah, I think Scotty's exaggerating a little bit, but I don't know. I'm not an expert. Now, this one is watch J.D. Vance smacks down Disruptor. Somebody disrupted the speech during fiery anti-immigration speech. Times Now World. Times Now World is the one that put it out. Let's see.
Enjoy the town because it is your city. And I think that Washington is a beautiful place. It's a beautiful place to spend a few days. I know you guys have some work to do, but I also think it's important to get out there and see the people's city. It was built with your tax dollars. I think these incredible buildings and museums are supported by all of you and, of course, by all the people that you represent. And so I hope you enjoy your time in Washington, D.C. So I know you're all busy, and I know it's never easy to come here to Washington, especially on a Monday. So I appreciate the effort involved in getting here, and I also appreciate the mission of this conference. The work you all do back home is extremely important. You know, most Americans, of course, they interact with their state and local governments far more regularly than they do their federal government, and that's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way the Constitution sets it up. We know that good government starts at the local level. So while those of us in Washington certainly take up most of the press attention, and we do that whether we want to or not, I want to acknowledge the enormous impact local governments have on the lives of our great American citizens. Now, the Trump administration believes in the wisdom of federalism and leaving local issues to local officials. But we all also recognize the importance of supporting and collaborating with all of you, because so many of the issues that you deal with, of course, implicate local issues, but state issues and federal issues as well. And one area of shared interest between President Trump and I think every single person in this room is the importance of providing good housing for our citizens at a reasonable and affordable cost. And I have to say, I'm hard-pressed to think of a time in my 40 years of life where it's been so hard for normal American citizens to afford a home. Even renting a home has become a challenge, or worse yet, fallen completely out of reach for so many of our families. I was talking with a relative a couple of years ago, and she just made kind of an offhanded observation. As a younger person than I am, she was looking to buy her first home and just mentioned that when her parents were growing up, they could afford a nice home on a single middle-class income. And she was sort of mentioning this as a sorrowful thing. She was sad that that wasn't true for her generation. And I think all of us in this room, certainly including me, have a little bit more work to do, I think, to make housing more affordable. And I want to talk about that because I think it's the issue where our interests in some ways are most aligned with the people in this room. You know, I read recently that the average income it takes to buy a new house is nearly 2 times the average salary of your typical American family. Not the average American worker, but the combined incomes of a husband and wife, and that's just not acceptable or sustainable in the United States of America. We want Americans to be able to afford the American dream of home ownership because we know that when people own their homes, it makes them a stakeholder. It makes them a stakeholder in their neighborhoods, in their cities, and ultimately, of course, in this country that all of us love so much. We want our citizens to feel that investment in their own country, and it's hard. It's hard to feel that investment if you feel like you can't even own a slice of it, even if that's what you want to do. Now, on a more basic level, we don't want people living paycheck to paycheck. We don't want them to make trade-offs between a trip to the grocery store and meeting next month's rent. Because even if you don't yet own a home, or even if you don't ever want to own a home, the knowledge that if you work hard and spend wisely, eventually you'll be able to afford a nice place to live, that goes, I think, a very long way to giving people a sense that they belong here and a sense that they have a stake in the future. Now, there are some important reasons why that belief is dwindling among Americans today. And a lot of it, of course, comes from the historic inflation that this country has dealt with over the last 4 years. Now, under the previous administration, to get a little bit political, the cost of a median price home in America more than doubled, and that was just in 4 years. And if your salary didn't keep pace with inflation and rise 20%, your buying power took even a bigger hit. And of course, if you think about this, if the price of a home doubles and the price and your actual salary doesn't double, then you're a lot worse off. And we know that most Americans did not see their salary double over the last 4 years. So it's no surprise that home sales hit a 30-year low in 2024. Now, another reason for the elevating costs comes down to zoning. And the reality, as you all know, is that zoning is an area where federal authority is actually quite limited. And I'm sure none of you want the federal government in the business of mandating how cities and towns handle local laws, and that's certainly not what we want to do either. But I would ask everyone in this room is to be good partners with us, and certainly partners with your citizens, and think about how we can improve the costs of the costs of housing for our citizens. And I think one of the ways that we're going to have to do that is by being a little bit smarter about our local zoning rules. And in particular, when I think about zoning, I can't help but think about it without, of course, the communities that I know best, which are those that I represented in the state of Ohio. And, Columbus, Ohio in particular, I assume we've got some Columbus people here. And, Columbus is a boom town in so many ways. I've got, relatives and family members who live there, who love Columbus. It's a magnet because it's had so much economic development. But one of the things that I worry about when I look at a city like Columbus or, Miami, which became a boom town during the COVID years, is the unaffordability of housing. And we've got to fix that. If we actually want these places to be magnets, not just for jobs and investment, but also the dreams of our young people, we've got to actually make it easier to build homes. And in particular, I think the city of Austin has done a pretty interesting job. Because in Austin, you saw this massive increase of people moving in. The cost of housing skyrocketed, but then Austin implemented some pretty smart policies, and that brought down the cost of housing. And it's one of the few major American cities where you see the cost of housing leveling off or even coming down. Now, the Trump administration has taken important steps to make building cheaper and to boost the supply of housing. Now, of course, it's going to take time. But this is a day one issue for our entire team from the president on down. On his first day in office, the president issued an executive order making it a priority to bring down prices for new buyers. Now, part of that will come from slashing needless regulations, which, according to some estimates, account for about 25% of a new single-family build today. We've also seen Secretary Turner, our great Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. He's working hard on this issue, cutting some of the Biden rules at HUD that hike costs and shifted decision-making from local governments to Washington, D.C. And Secretaries Burgum and Wright, and certainly Administrator Zeldin at the EPA, are putting in important work to bring down the cost of energy, which is, of course, a critical input to the cost of building a home, to say nothing, of course, of heating one and keeping its lights on. But I actually want to focus on something a little bit different, because I think this is one of the areas where what the Trump administration can do and has done is going to be one of the major drivers of bringing down the cost of housing. Now, local zoning, regulations, the cost of energy, these things are about the supply of housing. How do we get more houses out there to be built? But I think it's important to talk about the demand side of the housing market. And so much of what we're doing in the Trump administration when it comes to the immigration issue is framed about law enforcement, about reducing fentanyl coming into our communities. And that is true. That is a big part of why we're doing what we're doing at the border. But when we talk about housing and why costs are so high, we don't talk enough about demand. And one of the drivers of increased housing demand, we know, is that we've got a lot of people over the last 4 years who have come into the country illegally. And that's something we have to work on if we want to meaningfully reduce the cost of housing too. Now just think about this. If you allow 20 million people to compete with American citizens for the cost of homes, you are going to have a large and frankly completely preventable spike in the demand for housing. And that is what we, of course, have seen, because while we made it a little bit hard to build homes in this country over the last 4 years, we've also, unfortunately, made it way too easy for people to compete against American citizens for the precious homes that are in our country to begin with. Now, I'll say this, it's actually not just an American problem either. If you go to Canada, where because of their laws and regulations, they've seen a massive increase in the number of people who have come into their country. You go to the United Kingdom, you go across the world, and you see a very consistent relationship between a massive increase in immigration and a massive increase in housing prices. And we have to be honest about that. Well, I see one of our nice representatives out here wants to actually, I guess, continue to flood the country with illegal immigrants, making your communities and citizens unaffordable. But ma'am, with all respect, one of the reasons why we're doing what we're doing is because we want to make it more affordable for Americans to live. That is one of the reasons why we're doing what we're doing. Now, last week, I visited the southern border, and we decided to check in on what's going on there at the southern border. And of course, like I said earlier, you often hear about immigration enforcement as about crime and about drug trafficking, and that is a big part of it. I was at Eagle Pass, and I was talking to local border control down there, and they told me that in just a matter of weeks, their small part of the border had gone from 1,500 daily encounters to less than 30. And again, that's in a matter of weeks. That's just a simple matter of common sense border enforcement. That matters. Thank you. And let's talk about why it matters. I mentioned housing, but one of the things I heard down there, I was talking to the mayor in that community, and he said it's incredibly stressful on local resources. It's stressful on their local hospitals. It's stressful on their local schools to have this massive increase. And so while, look, I recognize there's a diversity of opinions here, clearly there is, I also think it's important to be honest about those disagreements, to acknowledge those disagreements, but to say that the reason why we care about border security is because we want your communities to be safer, we want them to be more affordable, we want there to be less drugs in our country, and we want your citizens to be able to live the American dream. It is the birthright of every single one of our citizens, and we're going to fight for it every single day. So, with all due respect for some of the disagreements in opinion, I'd say we welcome disagreements. We want to talk about those disagreements, but we also have to respect the law in the United States of America. And I can tell and I can tell you that yes, of course, you're going to disagree with some of our policies. That's okay. Come and tell us when you disagree with our policies, and we'll have a conversation about it. Maybe don't shout it in front of 2,000 people. I can't even hear what you're saying, sir. But importantly on this question of immigration, we have to recognize that, yes, you can disagree with some of the laws that are in place. You can disagree with the enforcement of those laws. You can even vote for people who want to change those laws. But while we have immigration laws on the books, we will enforce them, and we expect our local municipalities to help us. So it will be the policy of the Trump administration to enforce the nation's laws, and it will be the policy of the Trump administration to say that it is not up to local cities to choose which federal laws that they're going to enforce. It's important. We can't do immigration enforcement with sanctuary cities. We've got to have everybody respecting the law, and that is going to be one of the major policy focuses, of course, of the Trump administration, and it already has been. And I want to just say one final point about this issue of housing and of the strains that immigration and illegal immigration in particular put on our housing stock. We know from economists that blue-collar folks are often those who face the biggest cuts in wages and in services when you have communities overwhelmed by illegal immigration. I come from a blue-collar family. And I think one of the main drivers is that we need to be able to give our citizens, black, white, or whatever skin color, whatever belief system that they have, if you are an American citizen, you deserve to have a government at the local, city, and federal level that fights for the American dream for you. And we've seen yes, over the Biden administration, but let's be honest, over 40 years of American policy, we've seen a lot of our blue-collar Americans, urban and rural, struggling. struggling to afford a home, struggling to raise their kids in safe communities, struggling to look to the future with hope and optimism. And so, with all respect for policy disagreements, I think that one thing that unites us in this room is that we want to give our blue-collar people in the United States of America a shot at the American dream again. We may disagree about how exactly to do it, but let's do it together. Let's fight for our people together, and let's reinvigorate the American dream for the American citizen once again. And let me close here with just an acknowledgement here that I know you guys have some of the hardest jobs in government, Democrat, Republican, or nonpartisan. You guys are the ones, of course, who fix the potholes. You guys are the ones that make sure our local police have the funding that they need, our local firefighters are able to do the incredible job that they do. So I just want to let you know, from the Trump administration, from the president, the vice president, and everybody else, we respect what you do. We're impressed by you. We think you guys are doing a great job, and we want to make sure that you have a presidential administration that is making your lives easier and not harder. So please consider our administration one with an open door. Please come to us when you have issues. Even if you don't like what we're doing on the policy, you guys have got to be able to come and talk to us. So keep doing a great job. Keep doing what you're doing. Enjoy the rest of your time in Washington.
Yeah, that's what happens. You have hecklers in the audience, man. Just annoying. People always put themselves before everybody else. All right, this one's the Millionaire Morning Show with Anton Williams. Trump doesn't understand business. Tim Walz is angry about tariffs against Canada, wants to war. Now, this is Tim Walz. I remember this guy, but I don't remember my standing on him. Anyway, let's see.
Now, we haven't really heard much from Tim Walz, but Tim Walz is still the governor of Minnesota. I visited Minnesota. I've visited Minneapolis and St. Paul. I've seen what happened. I will tell you that over there in Minneapolis and St. Paul, it is a migrant stronghold. It is a migrant stronghold. There is no ifs, ands, and buts about it. As a matter of fact, the choice of migrant over there in St. Paul and Minneapolis, which we do obviously have some regular folk out there too, but the choice of migrant over in St. Paul and Minneapolis just so happens to be Somalis. It is. Somalians over in Minneapolis and St. Paul, Minnesota are over there kicking names and taking babies. I know it's supposed to be kicking butt and taking names. Kicking names and taking babies. It's crazy. Is anybody over here living in Minneapolis or the close area? Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong. This is Tim Walz. Tim Walz is saying that he's going to start holding town halls in Republican districts in wake of the wage cuts, in wake of the Doge cuts. Check it out.
Governor Tim Walz is Democrat of Minnesota, a state heavily impacted by Trump's government purges and its trade war with Canada, which, of course, it borders. Governor Walz joins me now. Governor, great to have you on the program.
Now, I'm going to observe this interview, and I'm going to do it objectively, and I want to know if Tim Walz is saying some good points, and I'm going to give him points for saying it, and I'm going to hold him accountable for the things that he says is bad, okay?
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Let me just start with what this all looks like from your position as governor of Minnesota. Obviously a state right next to Canada. I imagine you have good relationships. I imagine there's a lot of trade that goes on between your state and Canada. What has this all meant for your state?
Yeah, Minnesotans like Canadians. We share a lot, and we share a great relationship. First of all, they're our biggest trading partners. It's incredibly disruptive. The number of people who cross the border both ways, Minnesotans going into Canada to work and Canadians coming into Minnesota. It's beneficial to both of our countries. Look, we get 90% of our potash, which is the fertilizer for our huge ag economy. That's real impacts on real producers, driving up costs for producers at a time when we can't sell our products because Donald Trump has this ridiculous trade war going on. And just quite honestly, the chaos and the uncertainty that it causes, so many Minnesotans are asking, when was Canada our enemy? And it makes no sense. It's very difficult as a governor to be able to set and think about budgets, to be able to think about how are we going to continue to attract folks here. And then he starts, as he did today, a day that I've dreaded as a teacher, as a parent of a student in public schools, and as governor, a senseless attack on the Department of Education. And I hope that I think your viewers know this is, there's no plan behind this. Donald Trump doesn't know how anything works. Donald Trump is this caricature that had a reality TV show that pretended like he knew how to run businesses. The reality is he doesn't. As a governor, we have to make these things work. Local school districts have to understand what are the impacts going to be when you lay off 1,300 experts who are there to make sure that every one of our children get an equitable education. And so it's chaos. And look, I think he thrives in this. And then he tells his supporters that only he can fix it. He's the guy who goes and starts the fire and then stands there and gives directions and acts like he knows how to put the fire out. He has no clue. So it's an arsonist with our economy. It's an arsonist with our institutions. He surrounds himself with people. The idea that the Secretary of Education would not know what IDEA meant, Individuals with Disability and Education Act, that's like your mechanic not knowing how to put air in your tire. And she's in charge of this nation's educational progress. It is catastrophic. And look, the short-term numbers you were talking about, Chris, are real. And I think it flips people like, oh, people who say, I voted for Donald Trump. I didn't know he would fire me. No kidding. No kidding. What I worry about is the generational change that this would make. Look, Ruby Bridges needed to be escorted into those schools, and the folks who went into Little Rock, because we didn't have an education department that ensured her civil rights were respected. That's gone now. And
I should have my iPad with my Apple Pencil so that I can write down a lot of these talking points that I'm trying to listen to them through. First of all, Tim Walz is... It's interesting that a person, now consider the source before we get into some of his talking points. It's interesting that somebody will talk about somebody being a caricature when in reality Tim Walz was pretending to be a person that was on the front lines but was exposed, and he thinks that we forgot this, he was exposed of having stolen valor. Exposed for having stolen valor. Tim Walz doesn't even have a house. He doesn't even own a home. Tim Walz wouldn't know what a good investor is if it hit him directly in the face. And this is objectively, because how can you criticize a great businessman like Trump, who has started numerous business and had enormous success, a billionaire before he ever ran for office? And Tim Walz has never actually even really owned a home. Let me say that again. Tim Walz doesn't even own a home. He's one of the few poor Democrats. He's a poor Democrat, and he's talking about somebody not knowing business. Now, I give Tim Walz credit for the fact that he doesn't seem to be one of the corrupt ones. He's just one of the ones that put tampons inside of boys' bathrooms in order to try to justify diversity, equity, and inclusion and support the trans community. However, how can you talk about Trump being a bad businessman when he literally is a billionaire and you don't even own a home, and the only monies that you've ever received is funds from taxpayers? It's true. Every single paycheck that Tim Walz has ever collected has come on the back of taxpayers. It's come on the back of taxpayers. Now, I will say that one thing that is true, because us as Michigan, we are a border state for Canada also. there are a lot of people that drive to and from Canada. Canadians drive over to Michigan in order to work because they got jobs here. I don't really see a lot of people driving over to Canada for work, but I don't know any about that. I don't know anybody that drives over to Canada for work, but I do know a lot of Canadians come over here in order to benefit off of the American economy. They have jobs here in Michigan, and they drive over the Canadian Bridge, or they drive under the tunnel, and they go back and forth as a part of their daily commute, because it only takes like 25, 30 minutes for us to be over in Canada and go through border patrol, and go through the bridge and all of that, and vice versa. But that has nothing to do with a tariff war. Has zero to do with it. Nobody is saying that we're blocking off the border to prevent Canadians from coming over here or prevent Americans from being able to travel back and forth through Canada. That has no relevance. See, he tried to throw that in there. And see, one of the things that Democrats do a lot of times, and Tim Walz is really good at it, because he can communicate a coherent statement. And it's one of the reasons that they thought that he was going to shore up and be able to back up Kamala Harris, because Kamala Harris couldn't put together a coherent statement a lot of times, is they often at times throw in facts, things that are true that we all both can agree on, to make it seem like, okay, I resonate with this guy. Oh, yes, Minnesotans and Canadians travel back and forth to go to work. Okay, what does that have to do with the price of tea in China? You see what I'm saying? And the Department of Education has always been in shambles, personally. The Department of Education has always been in shambles. I know here in Michigan, especially with our public schools that are largely subsidized, not only by federal dollars, but also by taxpayer money, as far as the money that you pay in your property taxes. I know that the way that a lot of schools get money is on count day. Has nothing to do with educating the students, has nothing to do with class sizes. We know that there's a lot of migrants that are inside of these classes that are exploding, and the teachers can't even teach anymore. And we got so many diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives that teachers are going through training. Instead of figuring out how it is that they can put together their class curriculum, they're spending more time doing training on diversity, equity, and inclusion to make sure that they're not getting sued by a student that then can take advantage of whatever is happening and saying that you're discriminating against me because I can't go inside of the girls' bathrooms. The Department of Education has been in shambles for a long time. It's about time for a revamp and an overhaul.
And my son, those of you, your viewers who are out there now who have individual education plans that let them thrive and be their best people, what do they want us to do? Warehouse these kids, not give them the skills? And this is going to impact local schools directly. So it is absolute chaos. And the question I ask is, you said it, Chris. He didn't run on this stuff. He told you he'd lower prices. You know the one thing Linda McMahon in her press conference did not say? She did not use the word children, if I'm not mistaken. She did not talk about educational outcomes. They view education as an expense, just like Elon Musk talks about entitlement programs. Those aren't entitlement programs. Those are the things keeping my mom alive. She paid into Social Security for 80 years. She should get that money back. And that's not what they believe.
But it is an entitlement program because it is a Ponzi scheme, and we don't even have it funded. And we robbing Peter to pay Paul, and in order for us to keep it solvent, we got to make sure that the next generation then pay into it, because we establish it to be a Ponzi scheme. And so if we don't cut the budget from the federal government and all of these other things that are, and again, remember that Social Security, it doesn't even matter whether it's a Ponzi scheme or not. Trump is not saying that he's going to get rid of it. He's saying that we need to audit it to make sure that the people that are supposed to be getting Social Security get it, and the people that aren't, that we not getting finessed as taxpayers. I don't see why that's unreasonable.
I want to go back just on that Canada issue and then come back around to the education cuts. I mean, this insanity about we're going to take Canada, 51st state, calling Justin Trudeau governor. It's nuts and it's stupid and it's silly. But at a certain level, it's like, I think across the border, understandably, they're starting to take it seriously. It's the only possible feasible rationale that anyone could kind of figure out for this trade war he's launching. And I wonder, again, as a border state with relationships, you've been talking to your other leaders in Canada. There was this 25% surcharge on your electricity, which was dropped at the last second.
Yeah.
So stop saying that there was a surcharge when it wasn't. It was something that he said that he was going to do. It was used as a negotiating tactic. You wasn't charged even a dime over what you was. Me, as a resident of Michigan, and I own a whole bunch of places, Did you see me panicking? Did you see me tripping? Did you see me at any time? Did you see me worried about, oh my God, my electricity is going to be surcharged or cut off? It was going to happen, and then they dropped it at the last minute. Of course they dropped it at the last minute because our president know what he's doing.
What do you make of those threats and what they mean to that relationship between our two nations?
I wish I could ask these questions.
Yeah, and so I don't blame the Canadians. They have to respond to protect their sovereignty and what they're doing. And
yeah, I agree with you, Author. Author says, see, and they just say stuff. Hold up, you paying the Social Security as you work, correct? Correct. How old is his mama? Has she been working for 80 years? What? You know how these older people, they've been working since they was 3. They've been paying in the Social Security since they was 3. His mama probably 83 years old, and she been paying into it since she was 3. Yeah, man, I've been paying in the Social Security for 80 years. I'm glad you caught that, because I missed it. The minute that you said it, I remember what he said.
Trump puts these on and takes them off. This has so much more damage than him pretending like it didn't impact. We have become untrustworthy. Yeah. And so if they are buying our soybeans or they're buying our corn, they're going to go look for a fair trading partner. And what Donald Trump doesn't understand, he thinks what he did in 2018, where we subsidized farmers to the tune of about $1.63 per bushel of soybeans just to keep them above water as he was fighting his trade war. We lost markets that took us decades to cultivate. They went to Brazil. They went to Argentina. And now we've got a surplus of products while input costs have gone up and nowhere to sell them. This is catastrophic. I had an event out on a farm. I know many of those people didn't vote for us. But what I know about farmers is they understand international trade a hell of a lot better than Donald Trump. And they know this is just ridiculous. I think he gets this in his head. And it's, it is like it's like
Tim's own family didn't vote for him.
Like it's not real. These are long-term cultural shared values. They matter. And the damage that's being done, the lack of trust that's happening, very difficult. So when I call Premier Ford or I call to Manitoba, they feel bad. They know that this is not all the American people doing it. So you the
treasonous one. You the one that Doug Ford, the premier in Canada, was saying that he talked to American governors and they don't necessarily agree with Trump. So you the treasonous one. Okay, all right. So we found them, y'all. We found some of the governors as treasonous. Doug Ford, when he was pretending to announce tariffs against the United States of America, when he said that he was going to surcharge us on electricity and he was going to shut off the electricity over here. Remember that? And he said, yeah, man, I talked to the governors over there. I talked to a lot of these people. He wouldn't name no names, but he said that I was talking to all of the governors over there. And guess what? They don't like what Trump is doing. It's Tim Walz. Tim Walz is the first one to call, hey, Doug, we stand with Canada. We don't stand with what goes on here in the United States of America.
But they feel like they have no recourse except to respond accordingly. And again, he negotiated the damn trade deal with them. If trade is so bad with Canada, he was the guy who signed the deal. It defies logic. But look, I think this is how he ran business. He stiffed contractors. He stiffed workers.
I know it's not just him. I know that Governor Gretchen Whitmer is calling too here in Michigan. I know a lot of them. Absolutely. But he's telling on himself. And he's being very transparent about whether or not he's going to be treasonous or not.
He doesn't pay his bills. He declares bankruptcy. The one thing is, his claim that he's the business president, he is the worst possible business executive that I have ever witnessed. And I hope, this...
You never started a business. Let's say hypothetically that a person has started thousands, hundreds, if not thousands of different businesses in which he has literally amassed a net worth of well over $1 billion. But he has 5 LLCs that wind up filing for bankruptcy in order to protect his personal wealth, and that's some of the things that he's done. You're telling me that's not a great businessman? So we don't consider 50 Cent a great businessman because 50 Cent, one of 50 Cent's businesses was filed for bankruptcy? But yet we celebrate him and we herald him. You're telling me that he's not a great businessman? Okay. All right, Timmy. I don't want to hear Timmy anymore. Timmy is tired. Timmy is just throwing insults. He's throwing ad hominem attacks. He's making himself look stupid, and his own family didn't even vote for him. So shout out to Timmy Walz. Shout out to Tim Walz. Anyways, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications.
Yeah. It doesn't take a genius to know that guy's a little slimy, man. It doesn't take a genius. Yeah, I mean, he's bringing up he's trying to make Trump look like some sort of incompetent when Trump's the billionaire and he don't have shit. I mean, really. Honestly. You can't be incompetent if you're a self-made billionaire, dude. Even if you started with your daddy giving you money, because he had a rich daddy. But even if you started that way, the fact that you created a whole fucking empire deserves some fucking respect. You know, even I know that. And I am not even into this shit, really. I just kind of survey the environment. Anyway, let's see what the next one is. I think I have one more. This is a very short one. It says Fox Business defies common sense. Sheriff blasts proposed blue state legislation targeting self-defense. So in other words, this is one of those things where if somebody breaks into your home and you harm them, they can turn around and sue you, and you could be taken away from murder, given charges. This is a California thing. Jesus. Man, in a way, I'm glad I am in Texas. Anyway, here we go.
California screaming out. I do like that graphic, I got to say. A new bill in California getting criticized for being pro-criminal. California gubernatorial candidate Chad Bianco joins me now. Sheriff, why do you think this bill, which narrows the criteria for justifiable homicide, why do you think this bill makes self-defense illegal?
Well, exactly what it says, and it certainly is it's going to embolden criminals. It's basically saying that if you are attacked by someone, or if someone attacks your family and your first response is to fight back, and for some reason, because of that person's actions, they end up injured and possibly die, you are going to be charged with murder. And it's basically removing the justifiable homicide from self-defense. And it defies common sense. It really does, especially in light of 70% of our state last year saying that we want a different direction in public safety than what we've been given by Democrats.
Why do you think this is being proposed? I mean, have a guess. Why are they trying to do this?
I can't guess. I can't even say, because it defies common sense. It makes absolutely no sense why you would. It furthers their love affair with criminals, that they just want to embolden criminals and allow criminals to do anything they want. It's almost like they're attempting to cause chaos. This is basically if you are confronted, you have to run away. You just give them whatever they want, you give up whatever they want, and you run away. And if you don't, you are going to be held liable.
Let me take this further. Somebody runs up to me, hits me in the face. I don't like it. He runs away. I chase him down. I clobber him. I injure him. I'm responsible? I'm liable for this? Is that how it works?
Yes, if you don't run away, if your first instinct is not to run, and your first action is not to run away from this confrontation, if you stay there and allow the confrontation to happen, and you punch him in the face, he falls over backwards, hits his head, and unfortunately dies because of his actions, you're going to be held responsible.
Pathetic. What happens if he chases you down?
Well, that's what's going to happen. They're claiming that in a last resort, if it's an absolute last resort and there's no more escape for you, then you can fight back.
Okay, I'm still shaking my head at this, but Sheriff Bianco, I know you're a gubernatorial candidate in California. Maybe you can straighten these things out for us. Thanks very much for being on the show today and explaining what on earth is going on in your state. We'll be back with you.
Yeah, it's hard to explain, but thank you.
But thanks for being on the show.
That's crazy, dude. That's how crazy California is, man. You can't even fucking defend yourself from being attacked. That is absolutely insane, dude. It really is. Whew. Yeah, I couldn't imagine living in a state like that. That's fucking crazy, dude. I mean, talk about throwing away common sense, dude. Talk about screwing the victim. Jeez, screwing the victim. There was a lady who her house got broken into and she had a big mace, like a medieval mace. Oops, that's 406. Don't want that. She had a big medieval mace on the wall. And so she injured somebody who had broken into her home. And the guy sued her and got a shitload of money. That's the sort of thing they're talking about. There we go. Yeah, man, that's crazy shit. Trump hasn't been in there long enough to do jack shit, and everybody wants to tear him down. You could tell right away who the scumbags are because they bring up facts that appear to support a case, but they don't. You could tell that the law is corrupt over there because of the stupid things they do. Did you know there was some place in Florida, some county, was singling out homeless people who were living out of a vehicle and purposely targeting them to get rid of their vehicle? They were doing that to get rid of their vehicle, to take away the vehicle. Because in the end, they just want to make money. It has nothing to do with doing the right thing or justice. Justice is not the same thing as doing the right thing. You know. Anyway, those are the last of my videos. I think what I'll do is I'll go ahead and end the video here because it's pretty long. It's like over an hour. And I'm just going to continue doing the rest of these guys. And I'm almost done anyway. And I'd like to thank you guys for watching. I know not many people watch my channel, but that's cool. I don't do it for money. I just do it for fun. So thank you for watching. You have a good night and good day.